Here's the truth about the Scouring. If you believe what you see on YouTube, you might be thinking that this is the Warcraft 4 we never got, or that this is a return to the glory days of Warcraft 3. Let me say that neither of those are true. The Scouring is great, but at least at this stage, the only reason you could argue that this is a Warcraft successor is the subject matter. It's not even close when it comes to its gameplay complexity, content offering, or narrative. But many others are telling you that it is, and rest assured, I would never do that. Again. I would never do that again. Jokes aside, I obviously get the comparisons, I just don't want people out there to get the wrong idea. The Scouring is a great, if currently somewhat bare bones game in its own right, and even if you, like me, think it's a little bit expensive for what it is now, you might want to keep an eye on it over the next 18 months, because I reckon this could be something special. Let's start with the Scouring's graphics and presentation first. It obviously looks fantastic, but I'm not sure exactly what is causing it to hit so good with me. It could be the lighting engine, showing how the sun cascades across buildings and the environment to create great looking scenes that transform drastically during the game's day-night cycle. It could be the colours. Units and environments pop without being too cartoony, and it's muted at points without being bland. Or maybe it's the building designs, which are incredibly cozy without drifting into the realm of a children's cartoon, with a scale that is so clearly unrealistic I would usually take issue with it, but thanks to the style of it, I simply do not care. You know what? Maybe it's not just one thing. Maybe it's all these elements coalescing. Because, yeah, I don't want to get up the game too hard here, but this is legitimately one of my favourite looking RTS games from recent memory. I'm a huge fan of what they've got going on here, and it's hard to believe something of this quality has been made by a team so small. It started with just one guy, who was actually the creator of Spin Tires and helped to work on the follow-ups Mud Runner and Snow Runner, and now I believe there's a few more people around the world working on the project as a joint development team known as Orc Group. As you'd expect from a somewhat lo-fi game such as the Scouring, I've had no qualms about its performance. Frame rates have been flawlessly smooth, and I've not encountered any crashes or bugs during my playtime. I did run into one technical oddity. When I switched the game to exclusive full screen instead of borderless, my performance tanks really hard, and I have no idea why. Switching back to borderless immediately fixes the issue, and I found no functional difference between the two, so no worries I guess. Anyway, it's always good to see a game in early access be screwed together as tightly as this one, so props for that. The Scouring features two familiar factions in Orcs and Humans, and currently they're both quite simple in terms of unit rosters, build options, and tech trees. This is probably the strongest argument against the Scouring being any sort of proper spiritual Warcraft successor, at least right now. Frankly, it's just not that deep, and there aren't many options in terms of gameplay to allow for multiple strategies or tactics to be used. Both factions collect gold and wood through simple harvesting, and there's an upkeep mechanic requiring farms to be built and managed to supply your growing population with food. This is one aspect though where it's actually more in depth than Warcraft, because as your food decreases and fails to keep up with your population size, units will become hungry, start losing health, and move slower until you can bolster your supplies. It's a cool system and a unique take on traditional upkeep or population mechanics from most other RTS games. Each faction currently only has a small handful of units consisting of basic foot soldiers, a heavy melee combatant, and an artillery piece. This roster will be expanded throughout the game's development, but currently it is definitely one of the weaker aspects of the game and is absolutely holding back my enjoyment right now. Having so few options makes every game feel pretty samey quite quick, and as I alluded to earlier, when you can only build a few kinds of units that function very similarly to their counterparts on the opposite faction, there aren't many options to change your gameplay style. Thankfully, there are some other aspects of the game that do add some spice. Heroes are the first, which are powerful single units that can level up, equip items, and use abilities. These aren't available in the standard skirmish mode by default. If you want to do that, you can activate a mod pack made by the developer, which we'll talk a bit more in depth about soon. Though for this, I'm not sure why it isn't simply a checkbox in the game setup screen. Maybe it will be eventually. For now, by default, heroes feature in just one specific mode, Heroes mode. Here you control this single unit only, while an AI takes care of everything else, so that's harvesting resources, building a base, training troops, etc. You have limited control of where your troops go through a follow-unfollow mechanic, but for the most part, you're only tasked with microing your hero around the map. It's a unique mode, but it's currently very bare bones. I'd love to see more ways to influence how your base is built, what gameplay style your AI companion focuses on, and customization for your hero. Right now, the only choices you have are the faction you play as, and which one of the few heroes you choose to select. There are other ways to play as well, including multiplayer and co-op, and there's even a wave-based survival scenario in here too. But like most other things right now, it's basic and not very customizable. I hope to see it and the other modes expanded more as the months go on. One area you do have a lot of choice though is in the Scouring's mod options, both as a creator and a player, and this is really awesome to see. Modding is clearly a big focus for the developers, evidenced by the easy to access mod tools and guides viewable right from the game's community page on Steam. The game already allows fully custom 3D animated models and characters, with maps and missions, with more on the way for things like cinematics, which will undoubtedly up the quality of any custom campaigns created by community members. Some of which are even starting to pop up already. They're simple, yes, but remember this is an early access game and it's only been out for about a month, so I'm sure there's much more to come. Accessing and playing any mods is also super easy. You can do it right from the main menu, and depending on the kind of mod it is, you can access it through the map screen, mode options, or just by playing it if it's game-wide. I'm a big fan of the Scouring's approach to mods and community content, and if there's anything that will give the game some significant longevity besides its quality once it hits 1.0, this will absolutely be it. As for my favourite mods, I've really enjoyed the MOBA mod, as well as getting some extra heroes and trying out these custom campaigns, if just to see what could be on the horizon. The Scouring is planned to be in early access for around 18 months, and alongside the initial release, a roadmap was also announced that lays out the developers' plans for updates over the coming months. We've got a new biome, controller support, a third faction, flying units, and additional modes and editor features coming during the early access period, among other things, and coming with the official 1.0 release, there will be another new biome, naval units, the undisputed best unit type in RTS games, as well as, most excitingly, the first act of the official campaign, with future acts assumedly being released as post-launch content. While I've talked quite a bit about how I think the game is currently quite bare bones, this is undoubtedly an exciting roadmap, and it certainly gives me hope that the Scouring will be a much more fleshed out game when it launches for real. And besides, bare bones is a relative term. This is a much more enjoyable and complete experience than another particular early access game that I've talked about recently, and for what it's worth, I think the developers will achieve their goals they've set out for themselves. I don't see an Industrial Annihilation style bailout happening here. Despite my somewhat lengthy criticism of the game's simplicity in the gameplay portion of this review, I do generally recommend the Scouring as it stands right now, but not necessarily to everyone at the price of $25 US, because you might not be getting as much as you'd expect at a passing glance. Do I necessarily think it's worth that much right now? Probably not. I think if you're looking for a game that you can sink more time into, as it currently stands, you'd do better with something like Godsworn, which is almost the same price. But no one is doing a Warcraft 3 inspired RTS quite like this right now, and that may be enough to get you on board. Plus, if you consider what the game has promised in the coming months, it's a much better value proposition, though of course, as I've said many times, try not to buy something with the promise of future updates, because as we know, anything can happen. But damn, with this and Godsworn both having solid early access launches, with major planned updates up until their official releases, if you're looking for some games to scratch that Warcraft related itch that you might have, both are fantastic options that are only getting better as the months go by. And if you're interested in either of those games, then there are links in the description for your convenience. Thanks so much for watching. If you'd like to support me and what I do here, you can do so via Patreon or YouTube memberships for as little as $1 a month. You'll join legends like Dakayo, Sean, Grey Spirit 4, George, Pavel Bram, Christian, Dan, Orion Dasrufkin, and Candy Bunny Bun, and my paladins of course Johnny, Marika, Tank, Empyrean, and Sparrow451. Thanks for signing up, appreciate it. Thanks again, have a great day, and I will see you again very soon.